Good morning, everybody, and welcome to PSG of Mercer County. The Professional Service Group of Mercer County is a group that is here for you, anybody that is in any kind of career transition. And of course, happy Aloha Friday. I'm always happy to celebrate Aloha Friday with my Hawaiian shirt. And so, of course, it's Friday. I'm wearing my Hawaiian shirt today. And I was looking around on the calendar and I found out today is National Worship of Tools Day and National Worship of Tools Day. So there's a national day for just about everything. Actually, any day of the week has multiple national days. And this is for any of you DIY people out there, do-it-yourself people. If you do home projects, I'm one of those. So that's why I want to celebrate today. So do take care of your tools. Keep them clean or polish them, get the dirt off. I know a few of you on the call today are DIY people as well, so you may want to go into your basement and garage and go celebrate National Worship Your Tools Day. And in addition to celebrating whatever the national day is, I want to let you know that our PSG of Mercer County is here for anybody in any kind of job search for any reason at all. It doesn't matter if this is something that you've taken upon yourself to change jobs. Maybe you're getting back into the workforce after having been taking care of something personal, or you were surprised by your former employer who had a reorganization and you may have been affected that way. I was twice in that fashion. We do have a lot of resources to help you be more efficient and more effective in your own job search. While we don't actually find people jobs, that's not what we're here for. We're here to give you information, education, an opportunity to meet different topical presenters, all to help you be more efficient and effective in your own job search. We do have a LinkedIn group. Our LinkedIn group has now over 1,700 members, and these are all members that have been to or in one of our programs at least once. So they've either visited us virtually or in person or both. And so we are now virtual for just about 2 years, just by the nature of the pandemic. But what's nice is having a group like ours with 1,700 job-seeking members. These are all people that kind of get job-seeking. They understand it. They understand a lot of the challenges. So there's a good chance that as you're doing your own investigation into companies or people at companies, and you find a connection through one of our group members, there's a good chance that if you contact that group member, they will actually reply to you. A lot of times we reply or write to people in groups or individuals in LinkedIn. They don't reply to us. They don't know us. But when it comes to job search, we kind of get it. So take advantage of it from that perspective. Certainly our members, and you're invited to do so as well, share articles, job leads, all sorts of information that you may hear about, because you can share that with other members. And of course, your activity means good things for you on LinkedIn. Being active on LinkedIn does help your profile, does help you be found in their search criteria. So the people that tend to be active come up a little bit higher in the search results than people who are not active. So that we have that. We also do have our website. Our website is psgofmercercounty.org, psgofmercercounty.org. Go please check out our website. It is more than just a landing page. So if you're visiting us for the first time, I do encourage you to join our LinkedIn group, or if you have been with us for a while and haven't joined yet, please join and go check out our website. We have over 120 web pages of content. There's a lot of information on our website. We have a resources page, and actually we just added a brand new resource. There are 45 resources, there's different icons and links. We have 16 networking groups, links to other networking groups. We've got 27 other career resources, different agencies, state agencies, libraries. We have a wellness resource, and we have a mental health resource. So if any of these would be of interest to you, and the one we added, we did, as I mentioned before, My Network Essential. We did just add My Networking Essential to our resources page as well. And so you can take a look at that or any of the other resources that we have posted. So as I mentioned, we will be recording this presentation, and so that'll be available a little later on our YouTube channel. So you can just look for PSG of Mercer County on our YouTube channel. We now have over 90 recorded videos of sessions on our YouTube channel. You can go revisit any of them. And also, you're welcome to ask questions along the way in this program. And what we do is just to kind of get our attention, write the word question in chat. The reason why we ask you to write the word question, because people do put other information like their introductions or their LinkedIn profiles, and that's all fine. So this way, when we see the word question, it stands out just a little bit, and Alan will be watching that periodically. And if you write the word question, then we'll have a quick conversation. You'll ask your question, or you can type your question as well. Write the word question, type the question, and Alan will read it on your behalf. So that's where we are. Normally, this is the point of the meeting where I introduce the presenter. And so I'm the presenter today, and I thought if I introduced myself, that's a little too self-serving, so I just won't say anything. That PSG of Mercer County is pleased to present me. Okay, so today we are going to talk about interview preparation and tips. We are all hoping to get interviews very soon, whether we've got something lined up already or not. And so we're going to talk about some proper ways of planning and preparing for interviews that are coming up. And, things have changed over the past months and years. A lot more we're doing with video interviews. So we'll be talking about video interview etiquette as well. But there's just a lot of planning, a lot of we go through with this, you'll think of as common sense, and that's okay. Sometimes we just need one place that has all the information that becomes important to you. So as the curtains open up for our program, there are different types of interviews that you could find yourself seeing. So you may be in a situation, and you should be just prepared that there may be different types of interviews. So certainly there's the video interview or the virtual interview, and those are very common now. Certainly they're very common as first interviews. And so you may be likely that you'll go in person after the first interview, but certainly you want to dress like it is an in-person interview, at least in view of the camera. So you want to dress appropriately. Now it depends, should you wear a suit or a gentleman with a jacket and tie, or can you be business casual? It depends on the organization, and if you're not really sure, you can ask the person that set up the interview, what is appropriate dress at your organization? You can dress accordingly. And practice looking at the camera, not just looking down at the screen. And the reason why is, even though looking at the camera may be a little less natural for you because you're not seeing the people on the screen, what the people on the screen will see is you looking at them. So it looks a little bit more personal that way. Have a plain or neutral background. I have my blue screen behind me. It's a little bit less distracting, and make sure the lighting is in front of you so it lights up your face. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. On the phone, I suggest using a landline. And if you still have, and I have one of these, a corded phone, that's even better. A corded phone is a phone where the handset has a cable and it's connected to something on the wall. And a landline is, either through your internet provider or, the phone company. Try, if you can, not to use a cell phone. The reason why is sometimes as you walk around the house, or depending where you're taking the call, the connection is a little poor. But a landline tends to be much better. It's okay to walk around the house. If you do, don't wear loud shoes on a wooden floor. So just so you don't hear that noise in the background. And what's nice when you're on the phone, you can have your desk all around you if you like. You can have a pad and paper, you can have your computer, you can take notes, and that can be helpful. So I actually have my computer right here, my notes right next to me for any notes I need to take. You might be meeting one-on-one with someone, especially when you're in person. So there's that one-on-one interview. So just realize that you may just be meeting one person, or you'll have multiple one-on-one interviews in that session. You might be invited to meet them, and one at a time they'll be interviewing you. You're also the type you'll be interviewed by a group of people. There could be 2 or more people. My suggestion is that when someone asks you a question, that's the person that you should look at. So if you have 2 or 3 people around the room, or a big room, and someone wants to raise their hand and ask you a question, address them. You don't have to look at everybody while you're answering every question. But certainly the person who asked that question, they're very interested in your answer. And remember, smile and don't fidget. Sit up straight, not don't sit up straight. So don't fidget and sit up straight. So you want to look as you would as professionally as you can. And smiling, everyone likes smiles, seeing a smile. So certainly do that as well. Now, you do need to do some research ahead of time as well. You got to do a lot of preparation and planning. So research the company on the web, or go to a library and get some reference books about the company or about the business or about the industry they're in. And so you want to learn as much as you can. You want to be as well read and well informed about the company and the interviewer, the position that you're interviewing for. Also, review the company's website. It's almost a no-brainer, and the reason why is they're going to tell you on their website what's important to them. They'll probably have their values, their mission, things like that that become important, maybe press releases, so you can see what's new and hot and important to them right now. Research the interviewers. So you may be told you'll be meeting Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so. Research the interviewers on LinkedIn. You may get a lot of helpful information. It might be of interest if you find out maybe what school they attended or other companies that they work for or other industries that they worked in. It might be something, that information might be something that you can work into the conversation to connect with them on a little bit more personal level. So certainly do that research as well. Also, reach out to your own network. You may not be connected to these people. You may not be connected to the company that you're about to interview with, but maybe people in your network are. And if they know the people or if they've worked at that company fairly recently, they may be able to give you some information. And certainly about the company, if they've worked there, they can tell you some of the culture, maybe what it's like to work there, or things like that, things that may be important to you. Again, you'll be very well prepared. And also look for any breaking news, whether it's checking on the internet and social media or any of the news, business news stations. Smaller company probably won't be in the business news, TV and radio. Bigger companies certainly will. So you want to find out what's late and current. And the reason why is they may be good discussion points. So in that interview, you could say, oh, I had just read that you're releasing a new product line. Can you tell me more about that? And they'll see that you are very interested and vested in the organization. So do that research. Also, prepare some communication, things for communicating. And there's my favorite phone that I ever had, my flip phone. I love flip phones. You may need to confirm your appointment. Now, if you made your appointment a day or two ago, that you don't really have to do. But if you made it a week or so ago, it wouldn't be bad to maybe send an email, a friendly email, or even a phone. Just want to let you know I'm confirming our appointment for tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I think that people will appreciate it. I only had that a few times when I was a manager, that people communicated with me that way. And I always thought, they're really thinking very, very much about me and making sure that I'm aware that they're aware of the appointment. Make sure that you know the contact name and the phone number of the person that you're going to meet. And if you can't get a phone number, get an email address, get some information. Because if for some reason you're running late or there's a problem, there's traffic, stuck in the weather, whatever it is, you have a means before the appointment to contact them and let them know, you're terribly sorry, you're stuck in traffic. Make sure that they're okay with that. They may say, no problem, get here when you get here, or maybe they'll want you to reschedule, but it does show that you're thinking about them. Hopefully you'll leave early enough, you won't get caught in traffic, but just in case. Also, make sure that you provide your contact information to the interviewer as well. It may be the case, and this happened to me once already, where the person that was going to interview me had a late conflict. And so I got a call from the recruiter, so that was through a recruiter, that they're going to reschedule my appointment. And so that worked out well. I didn't have to go all the way to the interview. I was able to take care of that on my way going home. Also, make sure you let your references know. Let your references know that you are interviewing. And the reason why is there may be a point at the interview when someone will ask you, can you leave us your references? We're going to do reference checks. And so always make sure that your references know that you're going to be interviewed by whatever the company, ABC company, the name of the person, because what will happen is if they get a call, they will be prepared and expecting that call. And I can tell you, when I used to give out references, I never gave a reference if I was called out of the blue by the company, but my friend or colleague did not let me know that I was getting a call. The reason why, I don't know if it's legitimate. And I think the other problem is when I spoke with that person, I'm terribly sorry, I didn't expect your call. It may be a little embarrassing for the person being interviewed. that it comes across as, hey, they didn't prepare well, the people involved in the process. So do make sure that you certainly do that. Excuse me 1 second. Just muted the caller. Okay. Let's talk about some video interview etiquette. And you might find some of this a bit fun or funny, and that's okay. But video interview etiquette, it's not just being considerate. It's really about your image, the way you project yourself. A lot of us take video interviewing as a bit more casual, and it really shouldn't be considered that way. It's not really a casual process. It's an interview. So there's a formality that goes along with it. And there's some good etiquette that you should certainly follow. And there are some basics that are very important. First of all, be aware, video interviews, they're here to stay. They started before the pandemic. And of course, once COVID came and there were lockdowns and such, it just became much, much more commonplace. So be aware they're here to stay. You're not likely going to be able to avoid a video interview. And the COVID-19 experience validated that you can work or interview remotely, that you don't need to be always at the office. And so for some of us, that can be very convenient. And so just be aware that this is much, much more common, and it's going to be here for a while. Ensure your technology works correctly. So if you're not very used to doing video interviews, if you don't do them often or you're not comfortable, you may want to practice. Maybe contact a friend. And if you're told you're going to be in a Zoom session, let's say tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, maybe contact a friend and see if this evening you can do a Zoom session with them. Zoom accounts are free. You can have a one-on-one meeting. It's completely free. If you're using other technology, see like a GoToMeeting like we use here, WebEx, any of the others, see if you can find someone who can do that. At the very least, even if you don't have one of those other technologies, practice, make sure your microphone works, that you're heard well, all that kind of stuff. And then when it's time to connect to the meeting, connect a few minutes early, maybe 5 or 10 minutes early. It doesn't matter that you're in the waiting room or you're there in advance. You want to make sure that you establish that connection. If you wait until the start time of your meeting and you fumble a little bit, you'll be late for the meeting. You certainly don't want to be late. Don't use a mobile phone. Don't use a tablet. They certainly can technically be used, but think about some of the ways we use mobile phones. We typically hold them and we're moving around, so that's a little bit of a problem. Or maybe you've got a small desk holder or desk stand and it's a little bit low, and so you're looking down a little bit or you're looking up. So it tends not to be as good of experience, certainly for you. A smaller screen may be harder for you to see, but also if the camera is not as good or anything else that goes along with a mobile device may not be a good experience for the people that are interviewing you. So if possible, certainly use a desktop computer with a camera or a laptop computer that has a good camera. And be on time, just like I said before. So if your meeting starts at 10, don't join the meeting at 10. Start a few minutes early. And certainly when you're visiting in person, you'll arrive a few minutes early as well, so you won't be late for your appointment. So some other things, when you're not speaking, especially when there's a lot of promotion going on by the interviewer, you might consider muting yourself. You want to make sure there's no accidental background noise. Maybe the leaf blower or the garbage truck goes by or the airplanes are landing or whatever. And you just want to minimize that. Again, make it as pleasant experience as possible. Don't want it to be an unpleasant experience, certainly for those who are interviewing you. Don't use fake or digital backgrounds. And I know Nancy makes some beautiful ones and she's managed this process very well. But if you're not used to it, I'd say don't do it. Because if you look at this picture of this young woman, her hair has some streaks that are kind of built into the background. So her camera, the software, all that wasn't picking up. She has no arms. There's a little sliver of her right arm, but she otherwise has no arms. So whatever software she's using couldn't figure out properly where she ended and the background began, and created a little bit of a problem. So in my case, I just used a plain background without using the blur or a digital background. So be very careful. This is very distracting. Also, look at the camera. Again, my opinion is if you look at the camera, then what they see is that you are looking at them as if you were in person and making eye contact. So you want to look at the camera. You can glance down once in a while as you need to, so you can get your comfort and connection with the people as well. But I think you want to do your best looking at the camera. Think of those people that do broadcast news. Broadcast news, they're always looking at you. They're looking at the camera, and they have teleprompters and things that help them. I get it, but it does help us connect a little bit better when we're eye to eye. Do wear work appropriate clothing. Now, it could be a jacket and tie, like, well, this is Ron Burgundy is wearing, or maybe just a business shirt, business casual. It's got to be work appropriate. And really, the work appropriate needs to be what's in the view of the camera. Off camera, you can wear, I guess, just about as casual as you want, so that's okay. And pay attention to the meeting host. Don't look like you're distracted and doing other things. We don't want to hear typing in the background, even though you may want to take notes, but you don't want to look down maybe at another laptop or another computer. You want to act as you're engaged. Don't pick up your phone. Now, of course, if something came up like, can you meet again next week? You could just say, I'll look at my calendar if that's okay, and let them know that you're moving away from them. But during the meeting, don't be distracted. It's all about them. Lighting is very important. Don't light from behind. You want to light from in front of you. Lighting from behind always creates a funny look and feel. So when you light from behind, or maybe just from one side, you can look like a silhouette. Or maybe part of your picture, your face, or your image gets washed out. So it's not a very pleasant experience for the people that are participating with you on the interview. So it's always best lighting from in front of you and maybe a little bit above. And so just to give you an idea, in my case, my computer doesn't allow for me to have a light right up in front of me. I have two side by side. So I'm getting two lights and to light up on either side of the face. That's the way that works well for me. And hopefully you do see the image of my face. Whether you like my face or not is up to you, but at least you see it well enough. Also, you're going to want to frame the camera properly, not just your position in the camera, but the camera properly. Remember Where's Waldo? So this guy is probably using a laptop computer. And with a laptop computer, of course, it has a bendable monitor. And he might have put it in the perfect position so he could see what's on the camera or what's on the screen. And that's fine. But he's not really paying attention that at the top is the camera, and it's a little too high. So we're seeing the top half of his face or his head. Poor camera position, it's very distracting. And you can see with this woman, she's probably had the same thing. She's got a laptop, probably adjusted the camera or the monitor, so it's a good view for her. We're seeing the bottom of her face. But in this case, a good camera position always is a much more pleasant experience for your audience, the people that you're trying to communicate with. So yeah, do keep a good camera position, frame the camera position properly. In addition, the camera location, a little different than framing, is very important. Don't place the camera on one side of you or above you. I'm assuming this guy probably has two monitors, a left monitor and a right monitor. And it looks like the camera is on top of the left monitor, but he's looking at you or the audience on his right monitor. And this has happened to me a few times, not the way I work, but other people communicating with me, where they're just talking and talking at me, but the camera is looking at one side of them. And I found it a little distracting, and I think most other people in the audience could as well. Don't place the camera too far below you. Unless you are an ear, nose, and throat doctor, there's no reason to look at someone's throat and nose during an interview. So I think that it becomes very important. Try and keep it more at eye level. So think of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's got to be just right, because the camera sees what we see. The camera sees the perspective of the audience. So you want to keep it as close to eye level as possible, so it's a more natural engagement with the people on the other end. And your work location. It's very important when you are working from a home office or working remotely that you're someplace that's conducive for the video interview. This was actually, you can find this on YouTube. It's a BBC interview. Some of you may have seen this. This was a guy being interviewed on the BBC, and the kids and the wife all broke into the room during the interview. That's actually the wife going to grab the kid. So you want to be in a quiet place. And so, like I said, you can watch this one on YouTube as a BBC interview, but you want to certainly be in a quiet place where there's no distraction. The kids can't come in, the pets can't come in and create some sort of request of your time during the interview. And also, you don't want a busy background. So this guy certainly is dressed very well. He's got his shirt and tie, probably appropriate for an interview, but we see his bedroom behind him, and his bedroom is a mess. There was a guy that I used to work with. He was kind of a grumpy boss, but he used to say, a messy desk is the sign of a messy mind. So I can only imagine what someone thinks of a messy bedroom. I have no problem that he's presenting in his bedroom. Maybe that's the best place for his home office. But he may either need to always make his bed and fold his clothes, or like me, put a screen up to block what's behind. But otherwise, I think this is unprofessional. A simple background is best. And so this gentleman is using a plain white curtain, and that works well. So certainly a good option. So let's see, are there any questions? I haven't heard any interruptions or excuse me's from Alan, but this may be an opportunity, folks. If you've got a question or two, you certainly can feel free to digitally raise your hand or unmute yourself, and we've got another half of the presentation in front of us.
Nothing's come in yet, David, in the chat.
Hey, Dave.
Oh, there's one. Yep.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned about using not using those artificial background. Now, unfortunately, not everybody has like a clean background. So what was the alternative to blurring? Because like at this time, normally when I'm on Zoom, my office is in my attic. So when you look at the background, it's quite funky. Not that it's messy, but it's just like a big space, empty space. So I'm wondering what are my alternative if I'm not to use a blur background.
Right. So what I have here is I made this background myself. This is some PVC pipe, 1-inch PVC or 3/4-inch PVC pipe, and I made basically a frame with a stand. So I don't know, I spent about $20 or $25 in assorted PVC, and since this is one of the DIY National Days, I guess I can celebrate that. And then I just hung a bed sheet over it. So that's one option. Another option, if you see Alex Freund has turned his camera back on, he has his blue background. It's kind of this round thing that he has behind his seat. And if I remember, it attaches or clamps on to the seat. So I'm sure if Alex were to move or get up, the background moves a little. But when you're close enough to the camera, a background just attached to the back of your seat may be an idea. I've seen them on Amazon. I don't remember exactly, but for about $50. So you may want to take a look at that. Alex, is that what your background is? One of those attached to your seat?
Can you please repeat the question?
Your background behind your head and shoulders. What type of apparatus is that? Yeah, okay. So it looks to be about 4 or 5 feet wide and probably 4 or 5 feet high, and it attaches to the back of your seat. Yeah.
No, it attaches to the ceiling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but one thing, David, multitask, I admit, here in the background. So I don't know if you mentioned the importance of the distance to the camera. In other words, you don't want to be too far, because right now my face is tiny, tiny, tiny on your screen. Yet, if I come this, then everything is my face. So you really need to find this optimal. I worked yesterday with a lady from California. She is 62 years old, very high-level professional, a medical doctor, and she was too close. And I was kind enough to tell her in a nice language, your age is showing because you show it to me. We use high-definition camera. Every little hair, every little thing is showing. Now, you don't want to be way, way, way back because they don't see your face. But you don't want to be too close to it either, because every imperfection, every crease, everything you have on your face is a kind of jumping at you. So find the appropriate distance.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, another very good tip. So thank you very much.
David?
Yeah.
Hi, I have a question for you. This is Martin Hernandez. My question is, you said to pay attention to the meeting host and stay, I guess, focus on the camera, but don't be typing or don't be looking down. But if you ask permission during the interview, in a Zoom call, for instance, and because you want to take notes or you have notes, I don't find it to be distracting. But I always ask for permission. Like, do you mind? I'll take a note during this interview, and because I forget. I'm like that person that Alex said. I'm about that age. So you do tend to forget, or you want to circle back something. So I like to take notes. So even though you said you shouldn't, I find that I ask permission, and they're okay with it. Then at least I can look down from time to time to either look at my notes or take notes. What are your
Right. I agree with that. And yes, I think as a courtesy, you do ask. And even if we were in person, if someone says something, I usually would bring with me a pad and pen. And I would just say, oh, excuse me, do you mind if I just write that down? Maybe they're talking about some new product or software or something. So yeah, I think that's appropriate. But you certainly, my point is, you don't want to be doing something else other than interviewing.
David, may I butt in? I think it's an important point. I'm being asked this question all the time. If you ask the interviewer, may I take notes? How many people will say, no, I don't want you to take notes? Everybody will say yes, but I want to tell you, it's to your disadvantage, because the interview is an opportunity to communicate with the other party. The way we communicate is we look at each other. Because right now, I don't know to what extent you can see me. Right now, I'm talking to you guys, but I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking elsewhere. Clearly, I don't communicate with you. So I always tell to people, make an effort not to take notes, at least for that hour of interview. I know you want to commit to memory, but the moment you stop looking at the other person, you cut the communication line, and that is not good. One thing I can suggest you can do, actually two things. First of all, the question is this. David, is it okay if I record our interview today? That's a very touchy question. I don't know. They may say, no, I don't want you to, or yeah, go ahead and do it. I don't know what is the right answer. But one thing you definitely can do, if you have a phone, you can turn on the recording in the background. You don't need to tell them that. You don't need to ask permission. And then you have actually somebody that I know had a recent interview, and based on my suggestion, they turned on the phone, they recorded everything, and then they transcribed it. So you have all the information that went on.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, and it's a very interesting perspective, and you're right. You certainly want to be engaged in the interview, and that was really my point about not being distracted. I guess you have to decide if there's an absolute need to write something down very important. Certainly with the video interview, if you're good with your computer, you may be able to open up a small window, an app, and write something, have a quiet keyboard. I guess you can take a note or two. They won't see it, but you're able. So be very careful. But Alex's point about being involved in the interview as wholly as possible is very valid. Okay, any other questions while we're at this intermission point? There'll be plenty of time through the program at the end if any come up.
I have just a quick question, David and Alex.
Yeah.
When you mentioned, turning on your phone and recording, isn't there something I remember way in the recesses of my mind that's illegal with recording somebody without letting them know? Or did I just make that up?
I remember hearing that. I don't know what the law is.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah,
throwing it out there.
Yeah, there are two-party and one-party state, so you have to be careful. So if you are in a two-party state, you must require a permission. But if you're in a one-party state, you could do as Alex suggested.
Pat, isn't it illegal not to stop when there is a stop sign? And sometimes people just roll over. So I'm not advocating here to do illegal things, but you see, you can do illegal things as long as you don't make an issue of it. You know, if I talk to you and I, in the background, record our conversation, and I use it only exclusively for my benefit to listen to it again, because I want to be engaged in that interview. I'm not using this, you know, for any legal purpose or other purposes.
Alex, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just making a statement because somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I remember that. And that was the only reason. Although on occasion, if you go through a stop sign, you may wind up in an accident. And it's only illegal if you get caught.
Well, it's illegal because the law says it's illegal. If you get caught or you don't get caught is a separate thing. So if it is, if you're recording a call illegally and nobody knows about it, I guess it's technically still illegal, and we would not encourage you to do anything illegal. So certainly be careful. But there are different situations. It varies. I don't know the law in New Jersey, or if this interstate is different. So you will have to find that out if you want to work within the bounds of the law. Or you get interviewed at Alex's house, he'll record you and he'll get arrested.
I have a request from everybody. Please don't tell my friend Hanan Isaacs that I gave this advice.
Oh, what can I ask? There were just a couple of comments regarding those research areas that you listed. I just add a couple. One of them is your vendors. Two is maybe you call up your broker if it's an SEC publicly traded company, see what they say. And three, there's the ever lovely glass door.
Okay, so let us move along. And remember, please, while you don't have a question at the moment, just quickly mute yourself, and but we will move ourselves along. And the next curtain opens. So let's talk a little about your attitude and your appearance. And a lot of this pertains to once you have the opportunity to be having an in-person interview, but some of this certainly to the video or virtual interview as well. And keep your routine as normal as possible. Doesn't matter if it's a phone, video, or in-person interview. If you normally, go to sleep at 11 o'clock and wake up at 7, try and keep that as possible so it's a normal day. Some people do feel a little bit of anxiety or stress by the interview, and so you just want to minimize that, and that's one way of helping to do so. Be prepared. Lay out your suit, iron your clothing, whatever is necessary, and so make sure that you do look your best that you can. And so you want to make sure, and that also makes sure anything else that you're going to wear, have your shoes lined up and all that kind of stuff as well. About hygiene and grooming, my opinion is yes, do both, especially if you're going to be in person. There's very few people that can get away without grooming. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson seems to think he's one of them. Hygiene, do make sure you wash so there's no unexpected odors that may upset somebody. So you want to look your your best for the interview, and you are a professional going to a professional setting. And any accessories that you're going to wear, be a little bit on the conservative side. Some of us remember Mr. T from the 80s had all those necklaces on. I think in most cases that's going to be a bit much. Of course, if you're interviewing with Mr. T, it's probably okay. So, don't have lots and lots of jewelry on or any other, lots of other accessories You want to keep a little bit on the conservative side. Now, it does vary a little bit depending on the organization where you're interviewing, and you want to be sensitive to that. Of course, if you're going to interview at a jewelry store, you could probably get away with a little bit more. And if you're going to be in a more conservative office, maybe a little bit less. Shine your shoes. Some people don't pay attention to it, and some people pay attention quite a bit to looking at shoes. They form their own opinion. If you have dirty shoes or scuffed shoes, doesn't look like it's been shined, they form an opinion that maybe you don't take care of yourself. So at least wipe off the scuffs if you can. And really don't wear perfume or cologne, certainly not a lot, but you may even want to try and avoid all of it altogether. There are people that are allergic to perfume and cologne, to some of the ingredients. And so if you happen to be meeting with someone who is, they may not be able to continue with the interview. I had worked in an office a number of years ago, very sweet HR director at the time, and she was just, I don't know, bottled in it. I mean, she was just had tremendous amount of cologne. You knew she was coming, and you knew she was there. She never had to show up. She just had so much on her. That's what she liked to do. It was a bit much, and I'm not allergic, but I thought it was a bit much. And you know what? Bring a face mask with you. Mask requirements are certainly being reduced right now, but you just never know what the comfort level will be with the people that you meet in person. Obviously, a video interview, you don't need a mask. So regardless of what the current municipal requirements or policies are, even if they no longer have a mask mandate, keep one with you in your pocket or pocketbook in case it is indeed needed. You'll want to be able to be accommodating to the folks that you'll be meeting with. And so what to have with you, and this could be set up right at your home office or when you're meeting in person. So there are things you're going to want to have with you. You're going to want to have extra copies of your resume. And this actually came in handy with the last company I interviewed with. I knew I was interviewing with the hiring manager, and in my portfolio with my pad, I had 3 or 4 extra copies of my resume. And the hiring manager said, I want you to meet the team. So I wasn't expecting it, but I was prepared for it. And so the team had not seen my resume. So the hiring manager did not give it out. In hindsight, that should have been a sign to me that that may have not been a great place to work. But I had extra copies to hand out. And as I said before, have the phone number of your contact in case there's an emergency need and you do need to contact them if you're stuck in traffic or any sort of delay, you can call them right away. Have your employment history with you. It may not be something you need to hand out, and it's different than your resume, because your resume may be selective employment history. But if you are being asked to fill out a job application, you might have to have more specific information than the type of information about your former employers on your resume. Have your reference list with you for the same reason. If you are asked for your references, you can hand them right out. And again, do prepare your references. Let them know you're going on an interview, and so that they're aware that they may get a call at some point. So I am a fan of having a pad and pen or even a tablet computer with you. You may not have the opportunity to use it. I like to use one of those folding portfolios. If I'm handed anything, I could slide it in as well, so I don't have to worry about folding or futzing with the paper that I'm handed. And in case I have an opportunity to make a note, or you can even use it, taking Alex's advice, not writing notes. As soon as you leave the interview, go find a quiet place and write all those notes down. Maybe on the way out, you stop in the restroom or you go into your car, wherever it is, and just write those notes out before you have an opportunity to forget them while they're still fresh in your mind. Keep a copy of the job description with you. If you show up to the interview a little bit early, you may have an opportunity to review some things. I would say read over your resume and read over the job description. The reason why is it's a little bit of an anxious situation having an interview, and you just might need the few minutes before you walk into the room an opportunity to refresh it. One of the things I was always fond of doing is arriving very early to the interview location and finding a nearby coffee shop, Panera, Dunkin' Donuts, it didn't really matter, and sit there and I reviewed the job description and my resume. So found it very helpful as a last minute refresher. And have some prepared questions for the interviewer. So that way, based on your research, there's something specific you want to ask. And I'd say those are the things that you'll want to talk about. We're going to talk more about questions in a moment, both for you and from you. Now, as you prepare for driving or transporting yourself to the interview, if you're driving, if you can, do a dry run, especially if it's someplace you haven't been before. Now, that works out if the place that you're interviewing is not going to be very far away. You know, if you have a 2-hour ride, you may not be able to do that. So maybe you'll look at GPS or the maps or anything, but make sure you understand what's around. But if you do a dry run, what's handy is you'll see if there's any local construction that you didn't know about. Also, bring more than one way of getting there. So if you don't know the neighborhood you're going to, don't just rely on the GPS. Maybe print out from Google Maps or MapQuest a map so that if for some reason the GPS isn't working right, you have at least the paper to help you. And I'm actually a fan of just make sure that your car is not too messy looking, much like the picture of that gentleman in his bedroom. So if you normally have like a lot of food containers, you know, on the back seat piled up, throw them away. If your car is very dirty from a ski trip, go to the car wash, just get it washed off. There was a gentleman that I worked with, and one of the things he liked to do on an interview, we worked in a corporate office park. When the interview was over, he would say, "Oh, I'll walk you out." And then they kind of finished the interview on the way to the car. He peeked into the car. He made a decision, part of his decision of this person based on what the car looked like. So better safe than sorry. If you're going to be using public transportation, confirm the schedule. Make sure that it's not a holiday schedule or a weekend schedule, you know, because some industries you may be actually able to commute and go in on a holiday, and some take the day off. So just make sure you've got the right schedule. Check the traffic, check the weather. If there's going to be inclement weather, make sure you give yourself enough time. If there may be traffic, or if it's the time of day, if you're going at rush hour, there could be more traffic than between the rush hours. So do allow plenty of extra time for travel. Let's talk about some of the questions that you may get. Some of these are fun. You're going to get possibly what's called behavioral questions. And these are for the hiring manager or the person asking. They want you to they want to see how you handle different situations. And you want to try and anticipate future behaviors based on past behaviors, or they're going to do that. They're going to try and assume you're going to act one way when you're in their office based on the way you've acted in the past. So it'll, again, situational. Give me a case where you might have done such and such. Okay, and that's the way that may work. There are resume-related questions. These are questions that are very specific to what is written on your resume. And so they want to dive into the facts. Your resumes, in most cases, are bullet points, or even if it's a SAR story, which we'll talk about more in a moment, they'll want more. They'll want to hear more. You left them wanting more. So you should be able to answer those pretty easily because hopefully you wrote your resume. There are also what's called performance assessment questions, and they're trying to assess your strengths and weaknesses. They may ask you outright, tell me your greatest weakness, and that may be just like that. Or they may talk about how have you achieved specific tasks. This was something I was always fond of. When I managed data centers, there was always something to do in the data center. So if a server went down, or we locked out users, or something that recently happened, I would use that as a scenario for a question. So if I was interviewing someone for a data center admin, I might say, if all of a sudden someone was locked out of their account, how would you remedy that? Well, it's something that happened probably a day or two before, and that's what triggered. So I use performance assessment questions. And then there are these stress test questions. How well do you handle the day-to-day challenges of the job? And so sometimes they're going to put tough scenarios in front of you and explain things that are very challenging. And I like these also, especially hearing them, because they're clues to me being interviewed of maybe some of the challenges that go on in the office. And certainly asking about challenges is something you should be asking the hiring manager. This may be a clue for you as well. And then there are dumb questions. And these are not really dumb questions, but they sound like dumb questions. And they're really used to help understand your thought process. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but they're asking you some scenario for you to kind of think through. And so when they ask you a dumb question, the wrong answer is, that's a dumb question. So don't ever say you think something's a dumb question. The tech companies are usually pretty fond of doing that. I remember hearing a few that Google gave. One was, how many golf balls fit in a school bus? Right? You might say, well, that's a dumb question. And if you say that, you're probably not going to get very many more interview questions. And, you know, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer at the moment, unless you've worked this out. But you might answer it along the lines like, wow, I haven't really thought of that before, but this is the way I would approach it. I'd have to measure the interior volume of the school bus and subtract out the space the seats take up and anything else. And then the average size of a golf ball is maybe 1 inch, and then I'd figure out how many go in there. And, you know, you come up with an answer kind of like that. So let them hear your thought process. And there are, of course, potentially, of course, the illegal questions. And illegal questions are just that. They are questions that the hiring manager is not supposed to ask you. And here are some of the examples of what could be topics of illegal questions about race or gender, religion, marital or family status, your age, any disabilities, your ethnic background, country of origin, sexual preference, salary history. In New Jersey, it is illegal to ask your salary history until they offer you the job. Then they can ask because it becomes a validation question, but not during the interview process. And legally, you are under no obligation to answer any of these questions. You can answer any of them if you feel comfortable doing so. You know, so if someone asks, are you married, and you're just happy to say yes, that's fine. You're under no obligation to, though. But, you know, what you should try and think about, though, is if they've asked you the question, you can't tell them that's an illegal question. I mean, you can, you're certainly allowed to, but you're challenging them and you're putting them on the spot. So sometimes that could be a little bit dicey. So if you're uncomfortable with the question being asked, you may want to try and turn around and ask them a question about what they're really trying to get to. Because sometimes there's a very legitimate piece of information they want and they don't know how to ask it. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, when I was still interviewing, I had the opportunity to interview for the IT director for Central Synagogue in Manhattan. And I was interested very much in that position. And one of the questions they asked me, are you able to work on the Jewish high holy days? That is not an illegal question. Now, what would have been an illegal question is, so David, are you Jewish? That would have been an illegal question. And so I asked, why are you interested if I'm, might I be able to work on high holy days? And they said, well, what we do is we stream our services. And in case there's a problem with the streaming service, we want our IT director to be able to resolve that. And we, of course, stream on high holy days. So sometimes there's a very legitimate need for them. So they can ask, can you work on the Jewish high holy days? They're not asking about religion. Another might be, here's an illegal question. So you got small children at home? That would be an illegal question because that's about your family status. Or are you taking care of your aging parents? Again, would be. But let's say they were interested in this. Is there anything that would prevent you from starting your workday at 8 o'clock in the morning? That's not an illegal question. Now, so they may have asked if you had small children because they want to know if you could start your day at 8 o'clock in the morning. So you may want to try and drill down, if you're uncomfortable with the question, what they're trying to get to. Spent a lot of time on that one, and hopefully that was helpful. In answering the questions, you know, be relaxed. Stay pleasant, stay professional. Don't be nervous, don't be anxious. It's a conversation. You're talking with someone that you've recently met, and just have a very pleasant conversation. Answer with specifics. Don't answer with generalities. You know, what I think I might do is do something like this, unless it's one of those questions that are asking you to do a what if or the dumb question, but give a very specific answer. Okay, and be concise. Don't over-explain. Don't ramble. Don't go on and on. You know, these are not yet people that are so interested in you that they want to hear every word that you have. So if you need, take a moment and frame your answer so it quickly answers the question. If you didn't give them enough, they'll ask you a follow-up, and that's perfectly fine. Always be truthful. Lies can come back to you negatively. So if they say, have you managed $1 million projects? And you say, absolutely, and you never did, you may be challenged the first $1 million project they throw at you, and they will be unhappy. Don't even be surprised if after you're hired, they may be disappointed and let you go. So that could happen. So always be truthful. The lies will come back and haunt you. And answer your questions, the questions given to you, as best as possible as SARS. And there are different acronyms: STAR, CAR, PAR. This is called a situation, action, and result. Or situation, task, action, result, challenge, action, result, problem, action, result. So there's different ways of calling this, different acronyms, but they all kind of mean the same thing. And here's kind of what it is. Oh, I'm sorry. And expect follow-up questions. You should expect this to be a dialogue, a conversation. You're learning about them, and they're learning about you. So don't worry if there's a little bit of back and forth, or if they deep dive on follow-up question on one particular answer that you have. That's actually, in my opinion, a good sign. They're interested in you. So about the accomplishment stories, about the SARS. So it's a situation, an action, and a result. It's not a bullet point. This is what I'm good at. It's telling a little bit of a story. So it's a technique. It's a way of expressing all the relevant information about the skills that you use and the way that you've accomplished the scenario. And that's what that is. Not just informing someone you're good at something, but how you worked as well. So it kind of brings out a little bit of your soft skills in addition to your hard skills. So the situation sets the scene. What's going on? What caused the need for this situation? What was the challenge? What was the problem that I experienced? That's the S. The action is explain what you did. Might be one sentence, might be two. Try and keep it brief, keep it concise. But what did you do? And then what was the outcome? What was the result? And that's what a SAR is. And I'll show you an example of one. Hopefully this will be a good sample for you. I'm proficient in expediting the month-end close process. Okay, maybe perfectly 100% true. You may be proficient at expediting. But what does this mean? What's the situation? How are you proficient at it? Can you prove to me you're proficient at it? So maybe instead of just writing a bullet point like this, you write it a little bit as like a SAR. And here's an example. Challenged with a long month-end closing process. There's the situation. So you're in the office, and every end of month, if you're in the accounting department or finance or planning analysis department, you are involved with month-end closing. It's an accounting process. Challenged with a long month-end closing process. Oops, where'd it go? I reorganized my team's end-of-month work time into 2 shifts. Right? So maybe what it meant was instead of everyone working 9 to 5, someone comes in a little early, someone comes in a little later. Doing so put more staff hours into this process, reducing the organization's end-of-month close time by 2 days. So I think that's a lot more powerful than just stating that you're proficient at expediting a month-end close. You explained what the challenge was and what you did to accomplish it and how you got such a positive result. It's much more powerful. These can be put on your LinkedIn profile. These can be put on your resume. In my opinion, they should be. And they should also be the way you answer questions in an interview. Okay. Should I ask questions of the employer or the person interviewing me? Yes, you should ask questions. Right? Because you're also interviewing them. Do you really want to work there? Yes, you need a paycheck, or yes, you want a paycheck. That's important. But are you going to be comfortable there? Are you going to be happy there? Is the company a good fit for you? Is the job one you can actually do? So some of the things that you could ask about the organization. Maybe what are some of the challenges being faced? What's it like working with the management? What's the management like when they want to reach out to lower the staff, the management below them? You can ask them, what are some of the important traits you're looking for in the candidate for this position? And now what that allows you to do is then frame your answers when they tell you very specifically to them. So if they're saying, we're looking for someone who could really start projects on their own, a self-starter, something like that, then you could say, oh, very interesting, because here's an example of when I did that. And you're now providing them proof to their concerns. You can also ask them, is there anything else I can answer for you to help you with your decision. This is usually at the end of the interview. Is there anything we have not talked about that's important to them? So it may be an opportunity to do so. Some things not to ask. So what does this company do? So if you're in an interview for a company and you don't know what they do and why you're there, you probably shouldn't be there. And if they ask, you have any questions for us? And you say, yeah, when can I start taking vacation? You're not even working there. Don't worry about vacation. And I actually got this once. So did I get the job? At the end of the interview, some guy asked me if I got the job. So I had two answers for that. I had the one that I really wanted to say, no, you don't get the job. The answer, of course, I did say was, well, we're interviewing a number of people and HR will get back to you. I framed something along the lines like that. But these are very, showing you very selfish, short-sighted, thinking more about yourself than the company. So don't ask questions like that. So things to expect after the interview. You must write a thank you letter. And I know that because it's written in bold red. You must. And so you do have to write a thank you letter. You have to, you may get called back for a follow-up interview. So it's possible that hopefully a day or two, couple days later, they'll say, well, now we want to call you back and so you can meet the next person in the process. You may or eventually get an offer for an employment. And that will be the best case scenario. That's what you're hoping for. You don't usually get that after the first interview, but you may go through 2 or 3 or more interviews, and hopefully after that interview, you'll get the offer letter. You may get a thanks but no thanks response. Thank you for applying. We're moving on to meeting other candidates. And that sometimes happens. Now, you have to figure that actually happens more times than not because typically a company interviews more than one candidate. So it's possible a number of people will be getting something like that. So don't be surprised if it happens. You may actually get no feedback at all. In 2013, I interviewed for Burlington, the department store. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to hear back. It was a project manager position. They haven't said no. It's not likely that they're still considering me, and it just seems to be their process. They just don't get back to me. Okay? But never stop interviewing, never stop networking, keep the process going. Even though you might have had 2 or 3 interviews with a company, if there's no resolution, if there's no offer, and you've got other interviews that you can line up, line up those interviews, take those interviews. You just never know. It may be a better opportunity, or the one that you're waiting for may come back with a no thank you. So don't stop interviewing. About your thank you letter. Send it within a day of your interview. Don't linger. I think there are a couple of options. If you can send it as express mail. I like that option more than regular mail. And the reason why is sometimes when managers get a mail each day, they may put off opening it right away. But an express mail envelope seems to always get opened right away. Now you're going to pay a lot more, clearly. Express mail might be $10 or $15 instead of 50, 55 cents for a letter, but you may get more bang for your buck. If you want to send as an email, my opinion is write it as a document and attach that document. So your email may be, thank you, the subject might be, thank you for meeting with me today. And then in the body, it says the same sort of thing, and have the attachment, something similar you'll write. Have the attachment, let them open it up like a real letter. That's the way I've always liked to do it. And write it in, business formal format, dear Mr. So-and-so, dear Miss So-and-so. So it should be a formal and professional format. I like 3 paragraphs, not 3 sentences. And I remember when I was a hiring manager, not everyone sent that thank you letter, but most of them were 3 sentences. Thanks for interviewing me. And I really enjoyed the position and I look forward to hearing back from you soon. You're not telling me anything. A thank you letter is your way of getting the last word in the interview. So certainly do thank the interviewer, let them know you enjoyed the time. You might remind them of 1 or 2 of the key discussion points. So you're now reminding them, putting in the back of their mind something you talked about. I appreciated what we talked about, your opinion on project management. As we discussed, I have a similar view, taking the approach of such and such. And I continue to remain interested in the position. I look forward to speaking with you soon, and please contact me for additional information. So do it as 3 small paragraphs, not 3 sentences. And if you had an interview with multiple people, I would say the key interviewers, if there were 2 or 3 people asking you significant questions, you should write to each of them. Now, if you had 3 or 4 people that just kind of sat and listened and only 1 or 2 people that asked questions, only write to the 1 or 2. Those are the key interviewers. I don't think you have to write to everyone that just sat and listened to you. And again, this is your chance through the thank you letter to get the last word in the interview. Remind them of something that you talked about, something you want to leave them with, what you want them to remember you by. So as we wrap up, do your research. Very important. Know everything that you can about the company, the people, everything about that process. Don't forget proper video etiquette when you're online, video. And the same with if you're on a phone etiquette as well. You know, don't wear hard heels on a wooden floor. Plan the things you're going to need to bring with you. It could be things like the extra copies of your resume, a copy of the extra copies of your the resume, directions, the phone numbers, all those things. Your routine should be as normal as possible. Be prepared by laying out your attire and your accessories ahead of time. Do all your proper planning for travel. Make sure that you can arrive there on time. Like I said, one thing I always used to like to do is know where the local coffee shop was. So if I get there early enough, I just pull in and park at the coffee shop. If I need to, I can use the restroom there before I go over to the interview. And then I might just drive 5 minutes away from the coffee shop to the place where I was being interviewed. Be prepared for the different types of questions. Right? And you can print out this document in a few minutes or later today, and you'll be able to see what those are again. Remember the stress type of questions, the behavioral questions, the dumb questions. Be prepared for potentially illegal questions as well. And always answer, be very pleasant, answer with specifics. Don't linger on the answer, don't ramble. And have some questions prepared to ask the interviewer as well. So that's where we are. I hope that was helpful for some of you. If you want to find the presentation, it's not there just yet. It will be a few minutes after we end this call, but you go to our website, psgofmercercounty.org, and on the upper right, there's those red arrows, meeting presentation documents. Full disclosure, there are no red arrows on the real website, but there is a real link there, meeting presentation documents. And when you click there, the page of all of this year's presentations are there. 1 or 2 of them may not be if the presenter did not allow us to have them, but most of them are there. And then there's also links at the bottom for prior years as well. So this one will be the one right at top until next week. So psgofmercercounty.org, meeting presentation documents. Any other questions before we wrap up? Ask away if you'd like, or put that quickly in chat. I've got the chat open as well. Now I'm thinking of that Pink Floyd song. Is there anybody out there? I know there's people out there. I'm not worried.
Dave, what do you think? Dave, what do you think about? You've had an interview with a company you love. Some of the people in the interview you really liked. It's a place you really want to work. They come back to you and say, sorry, thanks, but no thanks. Asking for another bite of the apple.
I don't think you can ask for another bite of the apple for the same position. They've already turned you down. But that scenario happened to me in 1999. In 1999, I interviewed with a company in Princeton. At the time, I was working in Manhattan. I wanted to be closer to home. And I went through the couple of interviews, and I found out, thanks, we went with another candidate. And through the recruiter, I found out it was down to me and the other candidate. They picked the other candidate. They picked the other candidate. I don't know that there's a bite of another apple. Hey, you made a mistake. You gotta interview me again. But what I did was, I wrote an email to the hiring manager about every couple of months. Just actually, I did land another job at Princeton a couple of months later. And I said, hey, I just landed, I'm here. Be happy to get together with you if you'd like. And I guess probably over the course of August to February, about 2 or 3 emails, I just wrote to the gentleman, keeping in touch, like keeping my network active. In February of 2000, I got a call. We've got another position available. Do you want to talk about it? So I kept myself in the back of his mind. And then when he had the other position, which was the same type of position, but in another work group, he just called me. So I was the person he called. So I would do it that way. But if he already turned me down for the first position, I don't think another bite of the apple actually works well.
Well, I guess one of the things that does happen is they took the other person. Guess what? It didn't work out, particularly in today's situation where the marketplace is so fluid. You're sort of keeping on their radar. Hopefully you were a good candidate, but they did take the other person.
Yeah, you know, if you're among the final 2 or 3, you're a good candidate. It may not be for that position that they felt you were the right candidate for that one position, but you are a worthy candidate. So I would keep the relationship open and alive. You know, don't be a stalker. You know, don't hang out in the parking lot and, you know, bring them a cup of coffee. You don't work there. But every few months, and like I said, I think it was either 2 or 3 times from August when I first interviewed, when I got the call from him, just, you know, sent a friendly email. I kept it in the back of my mind.
There are a couple possibilities, things that you can't possibly know. You can't possibly know what's going on in the head of the person who did take the job. You know, this may be not his dream job because he may decide after a while that he was not going to stay there. It may be that the company liked you and this is the job that you didn't get is maybe a rung or so below where they would like to put you.
Sure.
You know, and I know someone who that happened to. And once I had a boss who Allied Signal lured from Grumman in Long Island to Eatontown, New Jersey. Okay, not so bad, both are near the shore. One problem. He quit about 4.5 months later because there was this United Front in Long Island that did not want to move. And he went back to his old position, which hadn't been filled yet. And he was a senior level in manufacturing engineering, manufacturing operations. He was the factory manager. And this can happen. And if you do what you suggested of keeping the communication lines open, possibilities could happen.
Yep.
Just
thanks.
There's
Thanks,
a lot
Charlie.
you don't know.
Yep. Anything else, folks, before we wrap up? And, you know, in a moment when we wrap up, we'll turn the recording off and we'll keep the meeting room open. We can hang around, talk about whatever we want to hang around about. I'll stop sharing the screen. But there's nothing else. I will say thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity as always to be in front of you. Hope this was helpful and good. So let us move ourselves along. So we're going to be back here next week. We're going to be here March 18th, and we have a panel discussion, or we're also calling a forum. We have 4 panelists, and this is called a Job Skills Toolkit panel. This is a panel not of one type of professional. It's not just coaches. It's not just HR people, not just recruiters. We have 4 different people of 4 different expertise. So we have Janelle Rosino will be as a recruiter. Alex Freund will be representing interviewing. Deborah Feldman will be representing networking. And Gary Landy will be talking about communicating via LinkedIn and resume prep. And so this way we have a broad number of topics that we can cover from different coaches and individuals. And so hopefully there'll be a wider variety of questions that you may ask. That's next week, March 18th. The following week, March 25th, Eileen Sinet is going to be back. Introduce yourself, creative introductions for networking and beyond. So she is a communications specialist, and she will be here on the 25th. So that's what we got going on for the next 2 weeks. In addition, there's the Breakfast Club of New Jersey. We'll be meeting tomorrow morning. I gotta remember to wake up early enough. 8 o'clock in the morning, the Breakfast Club of New Jersey. You can get the connection information at their website, thebreakfastclubnj.com, thebreakfastclubnj.com. Ed Samuel will be presenting the good, bad, and ugly when working with third-party recruiters. So if you want some good insight from someone who is now a coach and was in HR and was a recruiter, he will be talking about the good, bad, and ugly when working with third-party recruiters. Also, visit some of our cousin organizations. PSG of Central New Jersey meets Mondays at 10:30, psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz, and PSG of Morris County meets on Wednesday mornings at 9:30, but they open up their session very early. By 8:30, you can join the conversation. psgmc.org, psgmc.org. So that is our meeting for the day. And so I want to thank our presenter, me, for presenting. Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. I just got the formality out of the way. And we hope that if we don't get to see you in person very soon, we do get to see you virtually, at the very least at our meeting next week. So until we get to see you again soon, simply say, bye, everybody.